Find that they look at this.
Not necessarily tribal or regional.
But I have said that.
All right, thank you for staying with us. You're watching Daybreak on Trust Television. Let's have a look at some of the stories on the front pages of our newspapers this morning, the dailies on Daybreak. Now, we'll begin with the Daily Trust newspaper this morning. The lead story there talks about Tinubu takes campaign to UK. Atiku woos Lagos voters. It has the riders that says, how I will tackle insecurity, energy crisis, ex-Lagos governor. Records of my background, age, education consistent. I will sell refineries to raise $10 billion employment fund. PDP candidate. We are ordained to end Tinubu's dynasty in Lagos, Jando. So you'd also find the pictorial there showing you the PDP campaign in Lagos yesterday and also the presidential candidate of the APC, Bola Tinubu, at the Chatham House yesterday, where he had an interface. We also have other stories. Above the lead story, FG introduces menial studies, others to varsity's curriculum, and you'd find the details of that on page 34. Passengers, apathy as Kaduna-Abuja train service resumes, and that's on page 24. FG orders redeployment of prison officers who cannot shoot to kill. You'll find that on page 5. And then also beside the pictorial, bandit killed 3 policemen, others in Sokoto, on page 8. Protect our facilities. INEC begs Nigerians, on page 33. 4 nabbed as APC PDP clash over billboards in Kwara. So these are some of the stories on the front page of the Daily Trust newspaper this morning.
Now let's take a look at the Punch newspaper. It has a lead story that says, well, the lead story is on economy. Naira depreciation adds 9 trillion naira to foreign debt burden as local currency weakens by 53%. External debt rises by 288%. We also have a second rider. Nigeria needs strong, productive economy, says economist. And just by the masthead, federal government not ready to fund varsities. This is coming from ASU. And above the masthead, we have Tinubu takes campaign to UK. Article train storms Lagos. We also have a pictorial here of the train that resumed operation yesterday. That is talking about the Abuja-Kaduna train. And the caption beneath it says, Abuja-Kaduna train records low passenger turnout. And then we have Nigeria projects 1.8 million barrels production by May 2023. Nigerians winning rise to 92 million. Still on the Punch, oil theft, Navy denies blaming NNPCL. These are the major stories on the Punch newspaper for today.
All right, so let's take a look at the Nation newspaper. On the Nation, the lead story, Tinubu points way forward on power, security, and others. You would have Chatham Household's APC candidate, Erufai Wale Edu, Bajabia Mila, Ayade, Alake, Beta Edu, speak. You would also find other stories there above the lead story. Atiku, I will sell off refineries to raise $10 billion for SMEs. Oil theft, we didn't indict NNPCL, says Navy. You would find also why I deserve re-election by Governor Sanwo-Olu. Akeredolu presents 272.73 billion naira budget, and also have Wike attacks Dogara for backing Atiku. So it says ex-speaker fires back. Ex-VP can't see Buhari's achievement, says government. These are the stories on the front page of the Nation newspaper.
All right, let's look at the Guardian newspaper. It has a lead story that says 7 years after, Buhari falters on 24 million jobs promise. And the first rider, NBS fails to release unemployment rates since 2020. Ngige's claim of 7 million jobs created unlikely. And we have insecurity, COVID-19, others undermine efforts to lift 100 million out of poverty. And just beneath the masthead, federal government decries opposition's downplaying of Buhari's achievements. I am ready to lead Nigeria, Tinubu says at Chatham House. And beneath the pictorial, we have INEC. This is coming from INEC. Elections can't be conducted in an atmosphere of violence. We also have election not our priority now as a nation, says Emmanuel. We'll fire back if Atiku's boys attack G5 governors again, Wike says. And just beneath that, oil theft. Navy absolves NNPC of culpability. These are the major stories on the Guardian newspaper.
All right, so let's take a look at the Vanguard newspaper. On the Vanguard, the lead story says, INEC yet to assure us on beavers. And that's according to Tinubu declares, I've collected my original certificate, says one of my opponents may not be Nigerian. Some Nigerians stage hashtag harass Tinubu out of London protest. Tinubu delegates El-Rufai to answer questions. Tinubu's Chatham House performance, a disgrace, PDP campaign. You'd find also above the masthead, subsidy. We won't accept any fuel price hike. And that's according to NLC. And also oil theft. We didn't indict NNPC, says Navy. No intention to disrupt 2023 polls, says IPOP. You also have other stories below the pictorial. Body of benches. NBA tackles Olanipekun, insists he must resign. You must remain neutral, Buhari warns army. 2023, don't despair, Oshibajo can urge Nigerians. You also have the footnote there, Dogara to Wike, you are suffering from amnesia. Gunmen abduct Benue commissioner. Abuja Kaduna train resumes operations with low turnout. You lack moral basis to criticize Buhari, Lai Mohammed tells Atiku and the PDP. Now, these are some of the stories on the front page of the Guardian newspaper, and that's about it, the stories that we have on our papers this morning. Quite interesting story. All focus on the outing of the presidential candidate of the All Progressives Congress, Bola Tinubu, at the Chatham House in London yesterday. A lot of reactions have trailed, what transpired at the Chatham House yesterday. While on social media, you could see how some kind of commending the APC presidential candidate for delegating or assigning, let me say, some questions put forward to him to some of the members of the APC, his entourage that went there with him, such as Governor of Kaduna State, Nasir El-Rufai, former governor, the current governor of Lagos State, Babajide Sanwo-Olu, to answer some of the questions. Now, some Nigerians are saying that, look, that's synonymous to abdication of responsibility. And others are saying, well, it's a demonstration of his leadership style and qualities. He's demonstrating that he's a team lead that allows all his team players to make contributions to certain things.
Well, and some are saying he's the candidate. He should be the one to answer the questions, because a section of the people who reacted said that if you're the candidate, people want to hear what it is that you would do. Because these people answering the questions are not on the ballot. They're not going to be on the ballot. And if he wins the election and becomes the president, he can actually say, well, I didn't promise to do that, because he didn't answer. He's not the one that gave that answer. If maybe Governor El-Rufai gives an answer, or Dele Alake gives an answer, or, you know, I mean, they're not the candidates. So at this point, that's what some people are saying, especially on social media.
These are some of the arguments. But whichever way you look at it, at the end of the day, I think the whole essence of some of these engagements, the town hall meetings, the interviews and everything, the whole idea is for the candidates to be able to speak to Nigerians as to what they are bringing.
Which is also why some persons on social media are worrying or querying why the APC presidential candidate left the country to London when he should have attended the town hall meeting. You know, where other top candidates attended.
Yes.
Because first of all, the voters are here. That's what, you know, some people are saying.
Yes, and it's for some unacceptable that you have a presidential candidate who I think in some belief has evaded appearances when it comes to interviews such as the town hall meetings to be able to address Nigerians. Well, in his own defense, he said that, well, he feels that he is a marketable product and that he don't want to be used.
He said they want to use him to make money.
To make money.
Yeah, that's what he said
and
in
all
his
of
defense.
that. Those are some of the things that the APC presidential candidate is saying as far as appearances for, you know, interviews and debates, town hall meetings, and the rest of them. But we have seen that the APC presidential candidate has appeared in a couple of other engagements with other groups. For instance, the Northern Elders Forum, the network of Northern Elders, Northern groups that, you know, had meetings with all the presidential candidates in times past a few weeks ago. So we will continue to keep tab on all of this, but again, reactions will continue to, you know, trail his outing there. Now, some of the issues that were raised by some of those who responded to the questions, the governor of Kaduna State in particular responded to the issue of insecurity, and he talked about how that there is need to increase the size of our security personnel, the police and the armed forces. He talks about the number being quite low, and this is something that, I mean, we all have a consensus on.
Everybody has talked about that, actually.
The experts have said that, look, we have a very insufficient number of security personnel that can actually deal with the threats that we are dealing with right now. As a country with a population like ours, over 200 million people, you have barely, I mean, you have less than 1 million, I mean, just around 500,000 security personnel in totality. That's combining the armed forces, the police, the civil defense, all of them. It's not more than 500,000. So
and that is against a population of over 217 million.
Exactly. So it's largely inadequate, you know, to be able to deal with some of the threats that we are looking at. The issue of oil theft was also raised.
And then there was something the APC candidate also said that I found very instructive. The fact that he said he's totally against any form of political violence. When he said that, I was just saying to myself, I hope his supporters are listening to this. I mean, if your candidate is saying, I'm totally against any form of political violence, that should guide your behavior before, during, and after the elections.
Even your utterance.
Exactly.
Because we have seen more of verbal attacks. We've seen more of, you know, confrontation on personalities instead of on the issues. And sometimes maybe not directly from the presidential candidate themselves, but from their supporters, their spokespersons, you know, have thrown jabs at each other and all of that. And analysts and experts are actually worried that this could lead to even physical attacks, because by the time you know, overheat the polity with certain rhetorics, with certain kind of you know, derogatory statements, it could lead to physical attacks. And this is one of the concerns that experts are raising as far as the 2023 general elections.
I know still. Yeah, you know why the APC candidate was talking at the Chatham House? Atiku was also in Lagos.
Yes.
Yes, he says he's going to sell all the refineries and use the money judiciously.
And he's very particular about raising this $10 billion for job creation in the country.
Which is one of the biggest problems in Nigeria at the moment.
It is. I mean, when you have an unemployment rate of, you know, over 33%, I mean, that does not all go well for the country. A country that has a population of 133 million Nigerians, you know, in the
poverty,
category of
like,
multidimensional poverty, multidimensionally poor. That's, you know, unacceptable. And when you add that to the projections about, you know, population explosion, you know, we recently talked about the world now being 8 billion people.
And how Nigeria in a couple of years will be the third most populous country.
Exactly. Nigeria,
that in itself is scary.
Yes, Nigeria is contributing, you know, Nigeria among 8 other countries are the major contributors to that number, and the projections are by 2050 we are going to, you know, double the number that we have now. So it's scary when you look at the human development, human capacity development is a big issue. We need to invest more in making sure that more people are educated and all of that, and that's what formed the discussions. And I'm excited that these are the issues that are forming discussions as the presidential candidate, you know, are eyeing that #1 seat. Issue of how can we move Nigeria from where it is, you know.
But I think that as much as they say, I want to do this, I'd like them to speak more on how they're going to achieve that, you know. I know they talked, like the APC candidate talked about security, right? And how he made it clear that without security you cannot do much. But the steps that will be taken, you know, I would like to hear more of that.
Remains to be seen, right? So one of the things I've heard members of the campaigns have said is that, well, they don't want to divulge in details, you know,
they can tell us
what
part of it.
and how exactly they intend to do it, so that they don't, you know, open up all that they have in store for their opponents, and that others could take advantage of that and pick it up.
Okay,
and the
now,
rest of them. So I've heard that before.
When the APC candidate was speaking yesterday in London, and he talked about agriculture, he said that this administration has done a lot in the area of agriculture, but that his government, if elected, will introduce the use of technology. You see, so that's a way. So if we'd like to hear more of that, you know, on how you're going to achieve the things that you want to do.
Well, I guess sometimes we just say certain things just to to run away from certain issues, you know. That's my guess. But other issues on the front pages?
There's this story here. Federal government introduces mania studies, others to varsity's curriculum. And, you know, it's a good thing that the curriculum is actually being upgraded or reviewed, you know, because a lot of people have complained that one of the reasons there's high unemployment rate is because the curriculum is not in tandem with current realities. You know, the curriculum that you used in maybe the 70s, the 80s, of course, they can't work now because things have changed, and there's a need for people to be educated in line with the things that, with the reality that we're facing.
Yes, and for people to be more entrepreneurial in their learning, for them to have more skills such that they can be independent, such that they can stand on their own. And that's why I'm wondering the use of the word menial studies. You know, it gives it a
bit derogatory, right?
Yes. You know,
well, it's because we look at it that way in this part of the world.
Yes.
I mean, in the West, you could do menial jobs and nobody looks down on you because of the job that you do. I mean, you could be a carpenter, you could be a mechanic, but you're giving your respect. It's only down here that we feel, oh, you have to wear the suit, you have to wear the cap before you are respected and all that. So,
Well, the whole idea, I believe, when it says menial, doesn't really mean that, oh, it's something you don't want to do.
It just means that
something you want to do, something hands-on,
something
people
more
with
practical.
skills, and you know, good enough. In virtually all the courses, if you look at it, there are skills that one can actually develop in those areas that can make one to stand out and to be and to do better. You know, not necessarily relying on government for job and employment.
I think that's the end game, so that when people are leaving universities or after the NYSC, they know that there's something I can actually do with my hands without waiting for the white collar jobs.
And this new curriculum also introduces the unbundling of certain disciplines. Mass communication has been unbundled. Agriculture has also been unbundled. Architecture has also been unbundled in this new curriculum. So for mass communication, you have people now focusing mainly on advertising. You know, there are those who will
public relations.
Focusing on public relations, development, communication. These are areas that people are going to be majoring in, unlike what we have usually, where you study mass communication and then you are doing virtually all of these other, areas, or areas of specialization in mass communication.
And
so
that's one
good
area that has contributed to our economy recently is the area of IT. So it's a good thing that the federal government introduced things like data science, information and communication technology, software engineering. That will boost whatever we begin to get from IT.
Yes, and IT, I can say, has created a lot of jobs, a lot of opportunities.
Yeah, it is.
These days, especially if you go on social media alone and you see the ingenuity and the way people try to do things on their own to come up with ideas that could be of help. So it's a good one there. Now, other stories there, if you take a look at the resumption of train services yesterday, it was a great, I would say, achievement.
Yes, after 250 days, it's good for them to be back.
Even though there are concerns about apathy and all that, but hey, isn't it expected?
It's to be expected.
Yesterday was the first day. There are people who are watching to see, oh, okay, let's see, how is it going to go? Let's see whether those that boarded the train are going to arrive safely. And they did.
They did, and they had good testimonies. They were testifying to the fact that security has been beefed up.
Yes,
yeah,
yes. The only other issue that I would like to emphasize is the fact that we need to sustain whatever it is that we've started now. Not that when after a few weeks or few months we now go back to status quo.
Go back to status quo.
Because usually that's the experience. When something is happening and when we take certain steps, we come in vigorously. But after a period of time,
we just relax and go back into our
and that's
old
when
ways.
the enemies will strike. So it's very important that we sustain whatever it is that we've started now as far as the security and safety of
and that
people.
introduction of you can't buy tickets except you have your NIN is good.
Yes, it is.
And that even for those who had the NIN and they could not authenticate it, they could not buy the tickets.
So perhaps that's what formed the frustration for some who said they were unable to get the tickets via the online platform, via the website and all that. Perhaps it's one of those are some of the reasons. But I mean, there are people that still don't have their NIN, isn't it?
Well, they should go and get it. There are no crowds anymore. They should go and get it. I mean, we always wait until there's a problem. We always wait until they say, oh, without your NIN, you can't do this. Now there's no crowd, nothing. So you can just walk in and get your NIN.
Let's see how that.
You remember what
out.
happened? Was it two years ago when there was this huge crowd? And before then, they had said, go and get this thing. Yes. You didn't have to wait until the last minute,
Yes, it's almost like in our culture in Nigeria,
honestly,
to always wait for the last minutes.
There's a story here. Federal government orders redeployment of police officers who cannot shoot to kill. But the little concern that I have with the story is the fact that the Minister of Interior said that if they cannot shoot to kill, they should either be trained or redeployed. But he went for that to say they could be redeployed to female prisons. But I mean, those who cannot shoot should not also be at female prisons, right?
Well, I guess the whole idea is to make sure that people who are, capable of, doing their defending, I would say, the prisons, because the prisons usually people look at it as not a place that is really that secured. You feel like the personnel, deployed to the prisons are paramilitary officers who do not really have capacity to, to shoot and, to show some kind of level of force and all of that. But I think that is changing with the prison breaks that we have seen. It's a great lesson that we have learned, and I believe that this is the way to go. That
in fact,
we fortify our prisons in a way that not just anyone can just come around and just intrude or invade into the prison. So I think it's a way to go.
Yeah, in fact, the editorial of the Daily Trust today talked about that, but then it focused on the fact that the report of the Kuje prison should be made public.
Yes.
They said they would not make it public because of some security concerns, But the editorial is saying you can produce a redacted copy so that some things that are too sensitive, you don't put them out there. But if you make the report public, those who have committed, those who abdicated their duties will be seen to be punished as well. Yes. That could serve as a deterrence in future.
Yes,
people will take their jobs more seriously.
And the experience we've always had is that most times these committees and these investigations will be done, and you hardly would hear anything about the outcome of the investigation or the report. I mean, it's very common even among our security institutions, and the excuse is always that, oh, we don't want to jeopardize security and the rest of them. But the truth is that we need to be able to begin to name and share.
Yes, if people know that when I do this thing after investigation, I'll be exposed and all of that, that could stop the person. That could serve as a deterrence, really.
Yes. And it's an area that we need to do more as far as that is concerned. Well, I think that's the much we can take on the papers for today. We'll take a short breather. And then when we return on top of the hour, we'll take a look at some of the major stories, the headlines again, and also our discussion on the program for today. Join us again.
But in a situation where you find that they look like the same,
not necessarily tribal or regional.
but I have said that